Hello, everyone. I am just home actually from going to a drag queen kind of sidewalk demonstration and in Meaford, Ontario. So I did do a video on the street, but unfortunately my phone shut off. So I'm redoing it at home out of the rain right now. So that's kind of feels better. Got warmed up. So first of all, I want to say that Meaford is my hometown. I grew up in Meaford, Ontario. And I have some good and some very not so good memories of Meaford. And not very far from where I'm standing, just a few blocks over Denmark Street, is where some horrendous events took place. My first husband and his boyfriend sodomized my children. And so that is why I do what I do, and why I was standing on the street corner today to protest drag queens reading to children, small children. And of course, in their whole get up and everything. I think there were about 20 children that went there. It wasn't that many, which is a good thing, but it's 20 too many. So we're not here to spread hate. We are actually here to spread truth, to tell the truth, because it is loving and kind to tell the truth to your children, especially. Children are a gift from God. Parents have a responsibility, and they have the right to instruct their children in truth. And that really is what it comes down to. But first of all, the parents need to know the truth. And how will they know truth unless someone tells them? So I put together, I did a bit of research on drag queens because I wasn't all that familiar. It's not so much my lane. My ex-husband used to like to dress up. He liked to play dress up. I caught him at it a couple times when I come home from work. So he was very well versed. So he was homosexual. It turned out that I found out after we were married that he was having affairs. He had many, many affairs. Then he sexually abused, he raped, sodomized our children. And then he spent the last, I don't know how many years, 35 years in the LGBTQ community. He was he was charged, but he was acquitted for what he did to our children. So there are a lot of things that happen. So when you see a drag queen, who's most often male, dressing up in women's clothing with exaggerated makeup, it's typically for a public performance. Now, those public performances used to be in gay bars, downtown Toronto. And now they've taken it from the bars to the streets in Pride Week, Pride Month, Pride season. And now in the last 2 years, we're seeing all of these exhibitionists, these individuals who definitely have some problems, quite honestly, because they want to dress like women, and they're men with beards and, put all this makeup on. They are now in our libraries, not only welcome, but paid to be there. And they are reading to our precious children. And I'm not sure what they were reading. The reading isn't so important. Most of these children don't read, so they are very young. But the images, and drag queens and the makeup, it's greatly exaggerated. And so the result is that they intentionally mock women and motherhood and the female body. As a professional who has widely researched the area of gender ideology and the whole area of the eradication of women within the trans movement, I'm deeply disturbed by these men presenting a sexualized and false image of women, because that's what it is. No woman ever dresses like these men are dressing. And for sure, I've never seen a woman in makeup like these men who are in drag. Certainly it is overdone, but way overdone. It's intentional. We can't unsee what we see and experience as children, particularly, and their brains are very malleable. They're like sponges. And so when parents take their children to these events, they are really putting a lot of information into that child that child is not able to comprehend. Rising acceptability does not mean that such performances are wholesome or healthy for children. In fact, they are not. Drag queens are mostly associated with gay men and the gay culture until recently. They were performing in adult-only clubs. Adults are free to do whatever they want. Get that straight. That's fine if you're not intentionally harming someone. Okay, that's okay. You can go to your clubs and do whatever, but leave our kids alone. Drag transformed from the private stimulation in clubs to public display of rebellion against sexual restraints in the 1970s. And then drag queens promised, and this is their language, they promised to disrupt the indoctrination of heteronormativity with a drag pedagogy in order to plant seeds. You know how seeds are planted so they grow? Plant seeds that subsequently grow to undermine the family, marriage, and work. Isn't that interesting? This is from the 70s. So drag queens intentionally are trying to disrupt, I mean, they call it an indoctrination of heteronormativity. There was no indoctrination of heteronormativity. Heterosexuality was and is the normative way of being for over 98% of the population. There was no indoctrination, but the words they use are just to build impact and change brains so people can go along with all of this indoctrination. So I'm going to read a couple things here. Drag queens Little Miss Hot Mess, isn't that a lovely name, and Keenan explain that drag pedagogy is all about bending and breaking rules and artfully desecrating the sacred. I've got a bit of a sore throat, so let that word set in. So their attempt to indoctrinate children is all about bending and breaking rules and artfully desecrating the sacred. That means anything that we believe to be normative or true, healthy or holy, that they are setting about desecrating those very things. You think this is healthy for your children? It's not healthy for adults, and it's certainly not healthy for children. Drag educational goal is about inspiring disruption and disobedience. Oh yeah, that's what we want for our children, to inspire them to disruption and disobedience. But you know what? That's exactly what we've been seeing in our culture the last 20 years, maybe longer than that. In fact, it is longer than that, because think about the teen culture. What normally over the centuries, sure, there's teenage years and there's that angst and all of the stuff that goes on between parents and children. But in the last 3 to 4 decades, what we've seen is this whole disruption of family and disobedience, willful disobedience of young people toward their parents, and a very extreme, and really the deconstruction of family, all part of drag indoctrination. So drag theorists, and that's what they're called, they admit that all the talk of inclusion that you hear is just a ploy. It's all necessary to gain acceptance. That's what they're doing. So pay attention. People, take the scales off your eyes. This isn't about inclusion, and it's going to come back and bite us if we don't stand up for our children. So Miss Hot Mess describes the drag's movement efforts as this: to actively destabilize existing norms of gender and sexuality. Oh my goodness, haven't they done that? Any existing norms that we ever thought were true have been turned upside down. They've been queered, because that's the agenda, to disrupt the existing norms of society, and particularly in the area of sexuality. So instead of using the word sex, like on your birth certificate, on your passport, on your health card, now it's gender. Well, what's gender? Well, that's that kind of innocuous out there. We don't really know what it is. It's mostly the way we express our masculinity or femininity. But we need to go back to using the right words, the right terms. Sex means your biological sex, male or female. And of course, they want that all skewed because then they can muddy the waters with the word gender. Anyways, so drag queen's intent, the whole drag theory is on arousing and fashioning children's sexuality. You hear that? Arouse their sexuality before they are even able to understand what's going on, basically, and fashion it in the way they want to. At a practical level, this endeavor involves performing before the children. It's all part of the strategy of capturing your children's hearts and minds and drawing them away from normalcy, drawing them away from family, and drawing them away from the things that would actually help them to have a long and successful life. So there's books like Bye Bye Binary, The Gender Wheel, and listen to this, the hips on the drag queen go swish, swish, swish. Don't you want to read that one to your child? They actually show children how to live queerly, how to be drag, and they generally heighten the awareness of child sexuality. Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? So dubbed as just another healthy ingredient in the salad bowl of life, non-threatening mainstream entertainers out to generate wholesome fun. Boy, there's a pack of lies in there. Pack of lies. They come across as non-threatening, but the long-term and residual mindsets that are beginning to be built, those seeds that are planted, are going to devastate these children. Mainstream entertainers? Really? Since when are drag queens mainstream entertainers? They weren't 20 years ago, but they have started to seep in to live theater, presentations, different things, because it's all part of being accepted and maintaining this inclusive presence. And if we don't accept these people, which basically means be totally open and accepting of everything they do, not the person themselves, then we are, of course, intolerant. But drag is inherently and thoroughly a sexualized project. It's meant to groom children by lowering their resistance and normalizing all sexual experience. Lowering resistance of children makes them vulnerable and makes them much more open to the ploys of a pedophile. You know, one red key flag indicator of a probable sexual predator is any adult who's eager to gain direct access to your child and who focuses on sexuality. I guess I can just leave it there because the drag queens were inside in the library. Gail Rubin, the godmother of queer theory, calls for the denaturalization of sexuality, which refers to the separation of gender from sex, which we talked about. She also says that pedophiles' behavior should be normalized and legalized. You hear this? This has been going on for a few decades, this push to normalize pedophilia. And a British pedophile by the name of Tom O'Connor, and I've read his stuff for a few years. Anyways, he states this: being a drag queen or drag princess puts it right out there. So he's talking about how children can be groomed into becoming drag. And we've seen children performing, on bars. They're in bars, they're up on the counter performing, sexually performing in drag. So this is what Tom O'Connor, a pedophile, he says about that. It puts it right out there in the open for everyone to see. Let's face it, when a pretty young boy tells the world he's gay and dances sensually in front of grown men wearing skimpy and vampish dresses and makeup, when she, because he's looks like a girl, right? Not strips off items of clothing or goes on stage scantily clad and then takes them off. When the dollar bills are accepted as tips from the audience, apparently wild with excitement, we're getting far more than just a celebration of gender diversity. or an innocent display of precocious performance talent. Then O'Connell says this, it says loud and clear, I'm a sexy kid with sexy feelings. It's totally cool for grown-ups to get turned on by me. I love it. That's why I do this stuff. It's great. It's fun. It's me. That's what he's talking about from the perception of a drag child who's just looking for attention, but who has been groomed, sexually groomed. We must warn parents to keep drag queens away from their children. It's loving and kind to tell parents the truth as well as the children. There's simply no logical reason for drag queen story time hour any more than for sex workers to engage with youngsters. Parents need to protect their children. They also need to watch out for other children, and they need to be free to express their views and values. And our views are leave our kids alone.